Right, so one of the most important things to do when you're processing a voice is compression, just to make it sound solid, and any sort of inconsistencies in the vocal will be ironed out. I always go to minus 22 dB on the threshold for vocals. It just seems like the perfect amount every time. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. About 4 ratio, a little bit less release. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. This is a next up, EQ. Just add the spectrum analyzer. This is a vocal sample. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. High pass it at 130, add a little bit of the low end back. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. And a bit of the bright top end. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. And sweep for some unwanted frequencies. This is a vocal sample that builds tension. I'm going to take it down a bit there. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. This is a vocal sample that builds. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. This is a vocal sample that builds. So nice and deep. A bit of reverb always goes down well with vocals. So I'm going to use a Lexicon reverb, which are insanely good. They have a good preset called Lex Hall. So I'm just going to take down the mix a bit. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. And the reverb time. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. Take down the mix more. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. There's a bit of a pre-delay I can hear, so I'm going to get rid of that. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. And then when it's the right time, it drops. Take down the mix a bit. It drops. And then when it's the right time, I think this comes in a bit too early. And then when it's the right time, and then when it's the right time, it drops. Cool. I'm going to use one of my favourite plugs again, Rescue AE. Perfect for adding stereo width and a bit of mid-range punch to any sound. So let's see what we can do here. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. This is a vocal sample that builds the sides on and widen it up a bit. Sample that builds tension slowly. This is a vocal sample that builds This is a vocal sample that builds tension. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. And then when it's the right time, it drops. So the last thing we've got to do is create a riser, just to kind of cap it off a bit. So I'm going to grab Massive and put that on a new channel. I haven't got my keyboard plugged in, so I'm just going to make a note from there to there. And I'm going to make it an F. I'm going to make an F. The reason for that is, like, it's all very well like having, sick wobbles in your like bro steppy kind of tunes, but the fact of the matter is, if there's no musicality, people can be like, oh, sick tune, but no one's going to keep listening to it if there's no musicality. An F is the most resonant bass note when you've got it around the sort of, F0 or F1 sort of area. It usually kicks out the highest like volume bass of all the notes. So my riser is going to be an F. The first note of our drop is going to be an F for maximum impact. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. Yeah, that's about right. So I'm going to solo this out. I guess the basic principle of a riser is that you use an envelope to raise the pitch, you know, however much you want over a period of however long you want to create tension. I don't want this riser to distract too much from like the vocal sample, so I'm going to use a sine wave first off. Add in the pitch envelope, raising up 24 decibels. Oops. So you see, like, you add the envelope, create the attack, and level it off at the top. That's how you get your riser. Next, I'll use something with a few harmonics, smooth square, perhaps. Add the envelope, up 24. Actually, I'm gonna keep them detuned one way on the oscillator, and then detune it the other way, so it's kind of coming in and out of phase as it goes up. Turn the smooth square down a bit. Maybe even, yeah, that's quite cool. Something with a bit more character. Yeah, scream, I like that. Oops. Pitch envelope. And I'm going to keep the wavetable going round as it goes up, so it's more energetic at the end. And intensity creasing a little bit as well. Yeah, that's quite cool. See what we can do with phase. I quite like that, a bit of a rumble. See what it sounds like with everything else. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. And then when it's the right time, it drops. Okay, that's quite cool. One change I need to make, I think, is to have it starting later, so that, you know, the pitch envelope doesn't tail off too quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna have it 4 bars leading up to the little drop bit here. The little sort of this bit. Yeah. And then when it's the right time, it drops. Does that sound right? Let's listen to it from the start. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. And then when it's the right time, it drops. I'm going to have it going from there. This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. And then when it's the right time, it drops. Okay, that's quite cool. What else can I do to make it more interesting? Yeah, maybe a band reject filter. Open up the bandwidth as it goes along, not too high. It's quite cool. Give it a bit of feedback, always nice. Bit of parabolic shaper. Bit of chorusing. Alright, that sounds quite cool, really. Let's listen to it in context.
This is a vocal sample that builds tension slowly. And then when it's the right time, it drops.
Alright, that sounds pretty good. Riser. And I'll stick that in synth. Make sure I haven't turned the synth channel down. I have by minus 12 decibel. So I'm going to increase this by plus 12 decibel to minus 2. Quick bit of maths.
This is a... And then when it's the right time,
I'm just going to EQ it a bit so there's a bit more space in the mix. EQ, spectrum. No bad, a little bit of compression before the EQ. A good tip with compressors when you're using synths is when it's more for an effect rather than, you know, volume attenuation. Play the sound and then bring down the threshold until you can hear it sort of catching and getting a tiny bit louder. Then you can adjust the ratio. So like minus 11 decibel for a ratio is fine on this. And yeah, good ratio there. Perfect. In context.
and then when it's the right time, it drops. It's tension slowly. And then when it's the right time.
What I'm going to do is add a utility. It's a good little tip for risers actually, and you fade it in slowly with the utility. One of the problems with Ableton I find is that you can't use volume automation and then adjust the volume fader. So I always just add a utility, adjust the gain on that, and then it does the same job.
That builds tension slowly. And then when it's the right time. It drops.
Cool. Alright, I think that's about it for now. Join me in the next part and we'll be taking on the drop and the basses and getting to the meat stuff. Alright, cheers, bye.